Hey everyone, my name is Kayla Morton. I'm the sports editor at the East Carolinian. Welcome to the fall version of TECSperts for East Carolina's football team. This is Aaron Jackson. He's the football editor for the East Carolinian and a beat writer for football. This is Tyler Gavin, and he is the other football beat writer this semester. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's version of TECSperts. We'll be recapping ECU's loss to Temple and previewing the Central Florida game this weekend. So guys, what do you feel was the biggest reason that ECU lost their game to Temple when they had a good opportunity to beat them?
I think the biggest reason was blocking, it was running the ball, and it was covering the wide receivers. And if you watch the game, it didn't look like ECU deserved to win. It looked like ECU was in the game, and then they just gave up.
Yeah, both teams were super sloppy on Saturday. They combined for 16 penalties. ECU had 96 yards of penalties, and they only had 34 rushing yards, and that's a major problem. And Coach Montgomery talked a lot about it in the post-game conference and on Monday, that this week there's going to be an exerted effort to establish that run game.
And a thing could have happened. The players could have came into the game thinking, oh yeah, we're going to beat Temple, and they got surprised.
So Tyler, you're talking about penalties. Bobby Falk took a couple penalties early that were unnecessary. Hit someone as he was already out of bounds, and he just had unnecessary roughness on a couple of plays. He's viewed as a leader for this defense. How do you think that play shaped the mindset of the other defenders?
Yeah, that was definitely a bad mistake. That was late in the second quarter. He got hit on, I think it was a third down, and he hit a wide receiver out of bounds. That gave them an automatic first down, and on the very next play, he got hit with a pass interference coming across the middle. And that set Temple up for an easy touchdown. I think when your defensive leader or one of your defensive leaders starts playing bad and playing sloppy, it definitely brings back the rest of the players, and they kind of just puts more of a stress on them.
Got it. So obviously you guys already hit on it. The offense was lacking for ECU in that Temple game. Is there any way that we can even predict their offense going forward? I mean, they did well to start the South Florida game, but then couldn't do anything against Temple. When you look at the stats, it should be the other way around. Like, how do we go from here thinking how our offense is going to do?
I think it's all up to Sirk. If Sirk stays in the pocket, makes his passes, makes the right reads, hands the ball off, and gets the game flowing the right way, things will start to go good, and that's what we've been doing in the first half of a lot of games. But when they go into the locker room, things just break down.
I totally agree. I think one of the biggest problems, though, is the offensive line, like Aaron hit on before, and that's the reason that Thomas Sirk can't stay in the pocket. He's getting flushed out immediately because, never mind, is a lot of the offensive linemen hurt for the Pirates, but they're playing out of position. And from the very first game, Captain Garrett McGinn was moved over to left tackle after he was supposed to be the center and a captain.
So do you think because the offense has had some struggles and the line has moved, going on with defense as well, do you think because Mo is moving around these players that they literally just cannot understand the position they're in and they can't work together because they're trying to do the right thing for their own position? Do you think Mo needs to just go back to having the people play the positions they were recruited for, been on the team for, or should he still keep trying to move these players around?
Well, hopefully the reassigning of defensive analyst John Gutekunst will help the defense evolve, but until we see any production, you can't know.
Yeah, the production is definitely the biggest problem. I think there should be an effort to go back to the basics, but Mo did make the right move by inserting Aaron Ramsey into the starting rotation. He had 11 total tackles and an interception, and on the offensive side of the ball, he inserted Darius Pinnick for his first start, who has easily been the most productive ECU running back.
For blocking as well,
yeah.
too.
So, I mean, it's already Game 7 in our season. If we needed a defensive analyst to help our defense, we should have done it the first couple of games. Do you think there's really any hope at this point in the season for us to even turn the defense around at all?
I think it's just to calm the waters of the fire Comfort, fire Montgomery, clean everything out talk, but it might help.
I think that fire Mo and fire Comfort talk is starting to kind of push the team back and not letting them evolve to where they should be. There was definitely a lot of blossoming after after the Virginia Tech game, and then they went on to beat UConn and then played tough against South Florida. The defensive hiring a defensive analyst is going to help, but I don't think it's going to save anybody.
Right. right, so now moving on to Central Florida. They're coming into this game undefeated, 4-0 for the first time since 1988. How will they come into this game knowing that they have a chance to win the American, they have a chance to get into a bowl game? How are they going to come into this matchup?
It's definitely nice that they're getting pushed by South Florida. They're in the same side of the division. They're right next to each other, and they're pushing each other to be the best teams that they can be. And they are just blowing teams out of the water. South Florida is first in the conference in takeaway margin, and Central Florida second with a positive 8. They've had 11 turnovers and only given away 3.
And we'll see in the future how UCF pans out because they have had slightly an easy schedule going up.
They did beat Maryland though, and the
yes.
Georgia Tech game was canceled, but that would have been a fun one to watch too.
It would have been.
So talking about blowing teams out of the water, today the Knights wide receiver Dredrick Nelson said in a press conference that instead of putting 50 points up on ECU, they're planning to put up 70, and he smirked at that comment. What does that say about the ECU team?
That just says no other team respects our secondary, and they think that they can come into our house or we can come into their house and they can just pass it.
Yeah, it definitely talks a lot about the ECU secondary. Coach Brandon Lynch is doing his best with what he's got back there, and Coach Montgomery has had a lot of praise for him, but it just seems like there's a lack of, I don't want to say talent, but for a lack of a better word, there's a lack of talent back there, and wide receivers are just running past Chris Love and past Sargent, and they're running into the end zone untouched.
I think the defensive backs needs to come into the game more physical, popping the receivers in the mouth, hitting them down the 5 yards that they can hit them.
They got to be right on top of them to start.
Just set that tone.
You definitely need to be more aggressive for sure. So Mackenzie Milton's in the quarterback slot for UCF. He's just a sophomore, but he has led this team to an undefeated opening schedule, even though they have had games canceled. Talk about his play. Talk about what he's going to continue doing that's going to hurt ECU.
Well, to me, I think he's almost Brady-esque. He's had 13 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions, and ECU has only caught 3 interceptions the whole year, so expect for him to pick apart the defense again like Logan Marshy did.
And even though he's just a sophomore and has only started the 4 games this year, he started 10 games last year. There's a clear trust from Scott Frost into Milton. And Brady-esque, but he moves a lot better than Tom Brady does. He already ran for 206 yards, which is more than their primary running back has.
So are there any other positional players on the Knights that ECU needs to be aware of?
Definitely Adrian Killins Jr. He has tormented a few defenses running the ball, and he's almost averaging 100 yards a game.
And he's their secondary running back. He's their flashback. Primary running back Taj McGowan has 5 touchdowns already this season, and they have a wide receiver named Traquan Smith, who was not the one who was trash talking the East Carolina secondary, but he is averaging close to 85 yards a game and already has 7 touchdowns.
And he's the one who's tied for the receptions leader on the team, right? So moving on to score predictions for the game, we all have UCF creaming ECU, but Tyler picked the most points for the Knights at 62-21. Why do you see that? I
think just like their wide receiver said, that they're going to try to showcase this high-powered offense. It's going to be a national game. It's finally a 7 o'clock game for ECU. It's on a national stage. And this offense gets a chance to show that they belong in the top in teams in that area. And their defense is just absurd so far. They're holding teams to about 15 points a game while holding them under 200 yards. I think that's going to be a big problem for ECU. And if they can't get off to an early start like they did against Virginia Tech or they did against South Florida, they're going to be playing from behind the whole game.
And I have ECU at 55-13, kind of getting in that range that Tyler's talking about holding teams down. If UCF is limiting good teams to 200 yards and we don't have a run game and we can't get yards going because our receivers can't catch footballs, then there's no way that ECU even scores 13 points on the Knights. And mixing in with the fire comp for Fire Montgomery, there's no chemistry with this team. It doesn't seem like there's a drive from anyone. So this game will get ugly, and it will get ugly fast, especially on a national stage.